Hi, Steve Kaufman here. Bonjour, ici Steve Kaufman. Today I'm going to talk about French. Est-ce que le français est difficile? I'm going to speak initially in English and then in French. Remember, if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe, click on the bell for notifications, and if you follow me on a podcast, please leave a comment. So, French. French has things that makes it easy to learn and things that makes it difficult to learn. The biggest sort of factor that would make French easy is that it shares a lot of vocabulary with English. And English is very widely spoken, not only in English-speaking countries, but by people all around the world. I don't know, statistically, I think something like 60% of words in English are of French origin, or at least of Latin-based language origin. But most of that comes from French from the time of the Norman French invasion of Britain in 1066. So if there are so many common words, I mean, the biggest obstacle to learning a language is vocabulary. And when you listen to the French portion of this video, you will see that most of the words are identifiable as words that we use in English. And the French portion of this video will be made available in link as a lesson, even though I'm not a native speaker, so that you can look up words and phrases and learn them. So the big advantage, therefore, that English speakers have in learning French is vocabulary. I can tell you, as someone who has learned languages where there is little or no vocabulary common to languages that I know, it's a lot more difficult. And even though there are some so-called false friends, the similarity in vocabulary is an enormous advantage. Sometimes we don't recognize that these words are the same or similar to English words because they are spelt differently. For example, wherever in French they use an accent, you know, the aigu or the circonflexe, very often that hides an S. So étudier is like study. École is school. Hôte is host, or hôtel is hostel. So that if you put an S in where you see those accents, you will find it easier to recognize those words as being similar to English words. So that's the good news. What makes things a little more difficult is that French spelling is not obvious. It's not obvious that E-A-U-L-T is O. You know, even the sound O can be as in mot, meaning word, or beau, B-E-A-U. Mot is written M-O-T. Mot plural is M-O-T-S, and you don't hear the S. Beau, B-E-A-U, is beau. If it's plural, you put an X on it. You still don't hear the X unless there's a liaison. So that's just touching on the surface of the difficulties with French spelling. Not obvious to an English speaker. But then spelling in English isn't obvious to non-English speakers. So this is something that we have to get used to, and it is an element that makes French somewhat more difficult. The only solution is to do a lot of reading and listening and getting used to how words that are written a certain way are pronounced. Spelling, therefore, is a problem. I consider the issues of pronunciation and comprehension related. Some people find French difficult to understand because of the nasal sounds and because of the liaison. So first of all, the nasal sounds, the on, un, don't exist in English, and it's very easy to get them wrong when we speak, and sometimes to not understand well when we hear them in different contexts. Another issue that affects comprehension is the liaison, where very often the consonant of the previous word almost seems like the initial consonant in the next word. And therefore we don't notice what we're listening to. If you hear like, quant à moi, is it ta moi or quand? Ta moi. If it's quand all by itself, it's quand. When it's followed by a vowel in the next word, it becomes quant à moi. And it's as if the consonant has all of a sudden been attached to the succeeding word. So those are things, again, that we can read explanations of, but until we train our brain through a lot of listening, it's difficult. Another difficulty in French is gender, and it's not obvious. Whereas, say, in Spanish, words that end in O tend, in most cases, to be masculine. Words that end in A tend, in most cases, to be feminine. In French, it's less obvious. And I'll give you some examples in the French portion of this video. So gender is an issue. So le and la, plural is an issue. But all of these things, and I should finish by saying verbs can be difficult with the many different conjugations, a variety of tenses. Nowadays, of course, with conjugating dictionaries, such as we use at Link, it's easy every time you see a verb to look it up, see which form of the verb that is in the conjugation table, and every time you do that, you kind of scan the conjugation table itself, and it sort of helps you notice what's happening. But in the end, you simply have to spend a lot of time with the language. In the French video, I will recommend a song that you can listen to work on your pronunciation, because this song includes many of the sounds that I think are crucial to French, such as the sound, that is an E without an accent, when it's pronounced, and when it's not pronounced. And it's called Le Petit Cheval Blanc, so it's Le Petit Cheval Blanc, but can also be Le Petit. So the sometimes disappears. Is sometimes pronounced at the end of the word, sometimes not pronounced. But I think having a sense of the use of the this is my personal theory, is very helpful in getting the feel of French and being able to pronounce French. And I very much recommend you listen to this song by Georges Brassens.